Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Coco Bandicoot here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series while we're still playing through Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and of course the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially managed able to explore through the next kingdom, which appears to be taking place in the south, which, as it turns out, is about the fact that we did somehow went into this particular place, Joland, itself. So, as a result, not only do we somehow manage able to tackle through the Jungle Slider, but also with Joland Fun Park, as well as Joland Plaza, for able to take on the next boss in the game, which appears to be this weird flower clown. At least as far as I was assuming so anyway. And also, in addition to that, we somehow managed able to reclaim the first element, and somehow we also got ourselves our yet another element as well. So everything else checks out there. So today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to the next kingdom somewhere in the west. So for instance, we're about to be going on to Volk Hall, and eventually at some point is about the fact that we're also able to experience the other two levels coming up. So because of that though, let's go in here quickly, because as you can tell, we somehow managed able to double check the forms of the Bell of Discord. So because of that though, we're not going to activate that just yet though, mainly because no matter what though, we still need to able to take care of the forms of a lot of stuff, you know. So anyways, there are a few things I want to talk about this, despite the fact it's a bit early to say this, is that, well, today's date of course is the 19th of March today, in some cases in 2024 today, and recently, about the fact that we've only just got about 3 more days to go until Princess Peach Showtime is going to be releasing on the Nintendo Switch. Now, as far as I'm aware, also, is that I'm pretty certain that we've only got about, roughly, 65 days to go until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is going to be releasing. So, still I'm very excited about this, and yeah, that's what I can really say about that in regards to the forms of gaming releases during that specific period. So, anyways, let's get to the forms of another discussion I would like to point things out, is that, remember what Maxi has said this before, since in yesterday, in regards to the forms of Silver Story playthrough in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, well, as it turns out, is about the fact that he did already mention about the fact that both Red and Chuck are now become playable for the likes of both Sonic Dash as well as Sonic Forces Speed Battle. There's only one game exception to this though, and that's what appears to be Sonic Dash 2 Sonic Boom, because mind you, the new content for that game is basically concluded ever since in Journey forms of sometime in, I would say in 2020 sometime, or perhaps even lesser than that. Mind you, it's been a very long time since I actually have last played Sonic Dash 2 Sonic Boom. Well, that's just mainly because at this point in time, I'm basically just somehow pretty much more accustomed to able to be playing through not only Sonic Dash for unlocking more characters and stuff like that, but it's also about the fact that eventually at some point, unfortunately though, I've decided to able to go back onto Mario Kart Tour again, enjoying at some point until tomorrow, mainly because until tomorrow, it'll be a rerun of the Ninja Tour, which as far as I'm aware, hopefully I should able to give my benefit for the doubt when it comes to likely getting ourselves some even more playable characters as far as I'm usually concerned with this point. Well, what shall I say though, because aside from all that stuff though, I still do not like that game with Mario Kart Tour in mind. Although, I'm really expecting about the fact that hopefully by that time, once we get to October this year, it might just say about the fact that the services will end for the likes of in Mario Kart Tour, even though it will be kind of sad if that will seem to be the case. Although, I honestly don't care, because as far as I'm aware, I just do not like that game though very much, but that's just mainly because still the controls is still not supported with the forms of the Joy-Con controllers with the Bluetooth support, And on top of that, it's just about the fact that I just found this to be... Well, it's just about the fact that the rubber banding AI is way too cheap in that game. Especially noticeable because it's bad enough with all this very awkward control scheme, and as a result, I just basically give up experiencing battle mode online. And I will say about the fact that it bears repeating actually, is that the battle mode in Mario Kart Tour is, in my opinion, the worst aspect about the entire game. Probably because of limited soundtrack, and on top of that, there's only 5 battle courses, whilst unlike in Mario Kart 7, at least it does manage able to have ourselves 6 battle courses, whilst compared to Mario Kart Wii, has a grand total of 10 battle stages. And as far as I'm aware, for Mario Kart 8, the original Wii U version, despite it's usually based off from specific race tracks, and as far as I'm aware, when it comes to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, both of those games do have 8 battle courses. At least that's something. And as far as I'm aware, unlike in the ones in the forms of the old school days, likely for instance with Mario Kart DS has a grand total of 6 battle courses, and in Mario Kart Double Dash also has 4 battle courses. Well, to be more specifically, 4 battle courses when you manage to start the game off, but then the later you're able to actually continuously try to play through Grand Prix, you're able to actually experience 2 unlockable battle courses, which is of course Luigi's Mansion and Tilted Cards. So yeah, that's as far as I'm usually concerned. Mainly grand total of 6 battle courses. So, and I really don't know about the forms of Super Circuit though, but that's just mainly because I haven't exactly experienced multiplayer for myself, mainly because the battle mode is only accessible in multiplayer, which as a result, that could be the same alliance as the forms of not only Super Mario Kart, but also with Mario Kart 64, and even with Mario Kart Double Dash, whilst eventually at some point in Mario Kart DS and onwards, that basically though, the single player can now able to experience battle courses while simply battle against with those computer players. So that's always something, I suppose, but I digress. So anyway, as I was saying this earlier about the fact that, well, in addition about the fact that the actual Sonic and Sonic and Angry Birds has already got the crossover during the forms of it not only in Sonic Dash, but also with Sonic Forces Speed Battle. But as it turns out, it's about the fact that there's actually technically 3 more games that has already been revealed for the sake of this collaboration between both of those franchises. And as a result, 3 of them are entirely based off from Angry Birds itself, ranging from Angry Birds 2, Angry Birds Dream Blast, and finally Angry Birds Friends. Now, as far as I'm aware, that when it comes to Angry Birds Dream Blast, it's like a puzzle game of any sort, and in addition to that, Angry Birds 2 is a spiritual sequel to the original Angry Birds, as far as I'm aware. And when it comes to Angry Birds Friends, I'm not exactly sure how do I know about this, although as far as I'm usually concerned, it's a bit difficult to explain, because I know for a fact that I haven't exactly played that much of Angry Birds these days now, mainly because I just moved on to the forms of the different franchises I was pretty much into. Like for instance, about the fact that, like I said before, about the fact that we've already into the forms of a whole bunch of Mario and Sonic things, as well as the occasional Pac-Man games, specifically with the Pac-Man World games kind of thingy by. Even though it's a shame about the fact that Pac-Man World 2 never gets a remaster, remake treatment just yet though. Hopefully in the future they will, but I highly doubt about the fact that it's probably not going to be on Nintendo Switch 1, so it's going to be on the next Nintendo system, that's for sure, if it does manage to come to the play. So because of that though, again, we shall see what happens during that specific period. So even then though, yeah, everything else will become to expect. So anywho though, now as far as I'm aware, yes, they do have a limited time offering in regards to the forms of the Sonic and Angry Birds crossover collaboration when it comes to 5 games in total. So as a result, it did somehow begin ever since during the forms have been the 14th of March, and as a result, until around that time, until on Thursday coming up, obviously that will be the final chance to able to actually experience the Angry Birds and Sonic the Hedgehog collaboration when it comes to the forms of that particular crossover event. Although, still, luckily for us though, we've already did manage to able to unlock both of those characters in Sonic Dash for right now. I was expecting about the fact that maybe Bomb will able to make its playable debut as well, specifically based off from the Angry Birds movie, alongside with the Angry Birds movie 2, but at the moment right now, it only just shows both Red and Chuck, so understandably so. So anyways, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, in regards to the forms of what has been happening, is that potentially speaking of, is about the fact that recently, Metroid has been nominated for the Video Game Hall of Fame in this year in 2024. Specifically, the original Metroid on the NES, so you know of the fact that it doesn't age very well, but for its time though, especially noticeable back in 1986, along the same year as the forms of not only The Legend of Zelda, but also with Kid Icarus, it still holds up very well, despite with this archaic moments like you can't shoot down, or potentially speaking, I was about the fact that it's just a lot of those moments about the fact that there's a lack of save feature, unless if you do have the Famicom Disk System version, because it does have a save system. Well, that's besides the point. So, anyways though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well. I can't even believe about the fact that once we get to 2026, is that 2026 is going to be massive when it comes to filming releases during that specific point. Like, for instance, about the fact that we're expecting to able to get ourselves not only Frozen 3, and also with Toy Story 5, and of course, the brand new Super Mario Bros. Movie, or if possibly a spin-off Mario movie of any sort. Well, it's a bit difficult to say this right about now, but I suppose we'll have to wait for that until specifically once we get to 2025, if we're able to actually celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. Well, time will tell though, especially notable. My guessing about this specific theory is that once we get the forms of by the end of probably during the forms of in 2024, that we might able to actually reveal some voice casts for the upcoming next Mario movie of any sort. And then once we get the forms of sometime in 2025, specifically by the end of 2025, hopefully they'll able to bring us a first teaser trailer for one of those specific films coming up. You know, like I said before, where it comes to the films of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the new one. Well, again, it's a bit difficult to tell, and on top of that, I apologize for my comment take. It's a little bit slightly awkward sometimes. Well, that's just mainly because my tongue, for some reason, just got a little bit twisted all of a sudden. So, because of that, though, yeah, it's unbelievable about the fact that 3 of those massive franchise is going to be releasing around the same year as each other. Like, I'm not exactly sure who's going to make it to the sake of the forms of the best box office performance once we get to 2026, because it will be pretty insane, you know? So, anyway, and as you can tell, we somehow ended up in the forms of a mini-boss, as you can definitely tell, and basically we have to take down all these tad dolly things right there, so we can able to actually use those Moo enemies, so that way we can use them as projectiles and toss them back into... It doesn't really matter which ones you're going to be aiming for, but I'll admit though right away, the depth perception is not exactly the greatest, so I'm literally just trying to try my best if I was trying to able to do mastering of the forms of that specific aiming shots. Well, I know for a fact that it's been about 5 days ago since we've last played this game for sure. Well, mind you, because of how the fact that I was being busy recently, ranging from not only just trying to able to play this game right here, you know, with Phantasy Reverie series for Klonoa recently, during the forms of it not only on the PlayStation 4, but also same applies with the Xbox One version, so that way I can able to not only get certain trophies or achievements, but it's also about the fact I just want to complete the majority of the forms of some of those Xbox One titles, in addition with the forms of the PlayStation 4 stuff as well, before I move on to the next game where it comes to completionists. So, well, apart from the fact that we'll still gonna have to save up with Sonic Superstars eventually at some point in the future though, but not now anyway though, because obviously we are still going to be working on Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, as you probably already expect. Now I'm pretty sure about the fact that Maxi is almost going to be finishing up everything for the sake of the forms of that game. And I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen afterwards though, because as far as I'm aware, we're probably not going to spoil things too much, because as far as I'm usually concerned, that we're still on the forms of in 19th of March, as I stated this before, so... And also something worth noting for is about the fact that I'm pretty certain about the fact that we've almost come to a point about the fact that I believe we've almost had 4 months away for the likes of the Paris 2024 Summer Olympics. So as a result, I'm still curious to check it out, especially notable because, relatively speaking now, I'm still pretty much hyped about the forms of what's gonna brings us something new in regards to the forms of the actual Paris 2024 in France for the Summer Olympics. Well, I know for a fact that for one noticeable thing in mind is that the only new events they're able to introduce into ourselves into is breaking, stands for breakdancing. So because of that though, I'm still curious to able to actually decide able to check that out if I was able to actually be invested with it. So, well, I'm pretty sure about the fact that karate is probably not going to make it this time around though, unlike in Tokyo 2021 Summer Olympics, but that's just mainly because it's trying to able to replicate the forms of a Japanese or Chinese culture or something. So because of that though, maybe, I'm not exactly 100% sure, because I know for a fact it's been about almost 3 years ago since when Tokyo 2021 did somehow manage to take place and stuff like that. So, and I get the strong feeling about the fact that I do need to, actually, kind of think about it, let's just wait until that bomb explodes, so just in case I can able to obtain some more jewels or crystals to be more specifically, so that way I can able to actually just to like, you know, try my best to able to actually just to get, you know, if it's a possibility, we can able to actually gather all 150 jewel pieces or anything else like that, so that way we can able to reveal something rewarding. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure similar to the forms of how it does on the PlayStation 2 version, I don't think it's possible we can able to do a perfect run in regards to the forms of obtaining all of those jewel pieces, because as far as I'm aware, some of them you need to be super quick about it. Like, for example, there was actually the forms of this returning doubling system where it comes to likely if you come across into that particular fairy-like creature. And because what happens was though is that if you dare manage to activate that, obviously similar to the forms of how it does it on Klonoa Daughter Phantasy, basically what happens is that if you manage to activate that, basically that pretty much activates you enter double mode. Where, for example, if you manage to able to grab the regular green jewel, that pretty much gives you 1. And if you enter in double mode, it actually gives you 2. And as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the blue jewel, basically though is about the fact that it just gives you 5 jewel pieces, or yeah, I think that's as far as I can usually describe about it. But if you're entering on double mode, basically it gives you 10, at least as far as I'm usually guessing it correctly. So because of that, yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to compromise for able to mention something like this. So, and as far as I'm aware, yeah, we are basically done with the forms of the underground factory level. So, yeah, not too shabby for the most part, even though, if you couldn't tell already, that I've accidentally select retry from earlier ago, but that's just mainly because I was trying to able to double check on certain areas that I need to investigate for the sake of the forms of hidden goodies they somehow contain. Oh, and speaking of the forms of the retry option, did you guys know about the fact that if you do manage to able to purchase the actual DLC outfits for the likes of it, not only for Klonoa Daughter Phantasy, but same applies with the forms of Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, that basically those about the fact that obviously if you manage to able to purchase the actual entire DLC for the costume pack for the majority of the forms of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series. As far as I'm aware, there was actually that particular quality of life improvements they did somehow brings us into that I suppose I completely forgot to mention about. Is that I've noticed about the fact I've seen someone out there who's already managed able to stream the entire Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series playthrough, and as far as I'm aware, that if you do manage to activate the checkpoint clock, and then if you really want to go after every single jewels of this entire run, basically though, is about the fact that, well, if you do manage to able to change your costume at one point, that obviously, I believe, in order able to actually access the costume menu for the majority of the forms of this entire game, is that you need to pause the game and try to select options menu, and that way, if you manage to able to buy all of those costumes as DLC, basically the options select select costume is actually being available. And once you're able to try and change into that specific costume, basically it gives you the ability to able to restart the actual checkpoint you somehow last activated. So because of that though, if I'm assuming so anyway though, although I may be wrong, mind you about the fact I haven't exactly access to it though for the Switch version I should say. Well, this is mainly because at this point in time, I just want to able to actually get a lot of progression going in regards to the forms of this entire duology of compilation of games as far as I'm usually concerned with this stuff. So because of that though, it seems pretty interesting about the fact that we've already did manage to able to tackle through quite a few compilation games recently, ranging from Super Mario 3D All-Stars as well as Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo version most notably, and on top of that with Sonic Origins and also Sonic Origins Plus for the sake of some extra content that we like able to point things out what it does it contains. So, and I'm not exactly sure what other compilation games I might able to consider trying to do a playthrough of. Although, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Which one of those specific video game compilation games would you like us to try next? Because as far as I'm aware, we did quite a few recently. So because of that though, starting from the likes of in sometime in June forms of in, let's just say, technically speaking, from the likes of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury for, you know, since in 2021. Now, as far as I'm usually concerned with this particular point's worth noting for, that, again, it's a bit tricky to explain any of those specific stuff clearly. Well, mind you, because I was trying to focus on this for right now, because as far as I'm aware, that, like I said before, is that certain stage length is going to be ridiculously long, which is especially noticeable once we get to, let's just say, what if we get to the halfway point of this entire Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil as a game itself on this particular remastered counterpart? Well, obviously no matter what though, it's about the fact that it will get very lengthy with all these levels in mind. So, anyways though, now as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure it might be possible about the fact that ND World presentation might appear at some form or another. Well, we'll also have to wait and see what happens. If it does become true, obviously no matter what though, I should probably be able to explain more about the forms of specific announcements they'll do bring if they did somehow manage to able to announce ND World coming up. So, well then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time. So, also I just realized is about the fact that unlike in Klonoa Daughter Phantomile, is that I'm pretty sure about the fact I don't think it's a possibility we can able to go after the insane amount of extra lives. I'm pretty sure, well mind you, because of how the fact that this game is obviously going to be huge as it is, specifically for Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, as a matter of fact, because as far as I'm usually can tell, that unlike any forms of how it does it on the Game Boy Advance games, that is heavily utilizing the forms of puzzle elements while trying to do platforming and such, and then same applies with the forms of Moonlight Museum for the Bandai Wonder Swan, and as far as I'm aware with Klonoa Heroes, the Legendary Star Warrior, or the Legendary Star Medal I should say, basically though is about the fact that it does manage to bring in RPG elements to it. So because of that though, well technically speaking though, if I've noticed on the actual catalog, it did mention about the forms of action RPGs, similar to the forms of how it does it for Kingdom Hearts, alongside with Kingdom Hearts 2, and that's all there is to really think about it. Oh, and same applies with Kingdom Hearts 3, and vice versa. So because of that though, and can you believe about the fact that until when it gets to the point until next month, potentially speaking, that it's gonna be around 2 years since when Kingdom Hearts 4 has first announced back in 2022 for marks the celebration for the 20th anniversary of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, which, man, time flies, you know? But I suppose we should probably discuss more about it if we get onto it at some point on April, so, at least as far as I'm aware. So, anyways though, so let's just go ahead and go through spring to spring, so we can able to make our way to the rooftops and stuff like that, and of course eventually later on though, that we might come back into this particular stage for one noticeable reason, but of course I need to be able to go after this particular piece right here, so, oh jeez, timing is a little bit, precise right there, but thankfully we did somehow succeed, so, well, thankfully though, again, if you do die at one point, or specifically if you accidentally lost a life, basically though, if you manage to able to obtain one of those pieces right there, thankfully you don't need to worry about just recollecting it again, so that's another one of those quality of life improvements, what if I do somehow manage to find out? I'm not exactly sure if it's possible on hard mode, but that's just mainly because I haven't exactly experienced the entirety of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series on hard difficulty setting, but that's just mainly because that particular mode is really brutally difficult, mainly because of the forms of just only one heart as a hit point, and if you get hit just once, you're going to rank up, or potentially speaking, you're going to be wasting a lot of lives very, very fast. So, anyways though, so let's just go ahead and quickly grab onto this and go onto these specific tornadoes right here and launch ourselves upwards. In fact, that we just go ahead and grab some more jewels, so just in case we can able to hopefully try to catch up on specific extra lives we can able to encounter. So, oh, and did you know about the fact that not only does one of those franchises is going to be releasing, or expecting rather, is going to be celebrating its 40th anniversary, but it's also about the fact that they'll bring in 4 of those different franchises is also going to be celebrating its anniversaries department, starting with Transformers is going to be celebrating the 40th anniversary this year, and on top of that, Voltron is also going to be expected to become 40 this year, and on top of that, Mobile Suit Gundam is going to be expected to become 45 years for this year, and Katamari is going to be celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So, yeah, time flies, like I said before, especially notable about the fact that I'm not exactly sure what specific announcements they'll do bring with those franchises though. Well, mind you, haven't exactly keeping track with all these specific franchises in mind, unlike the Mario and Sonic games, including Kirby, Klonoa, Metroid, Zelda, as well as the forms of any other franchises I can probably think about. So because of that though, yeah, it's pretty insane when it comes to the forms of all of those specific franchises. It's going to be able to expect it to have all deserved the actual anniversary treatment. So now, as far as I'm aware, is that there's also technically yet another pre-order bonus items that is only exclusive to the European countries, as far as I'm aware. That basically though is going to able to expect to bring. We've already mentioned about the fact that the paper plane is going to be included in one of those pre-order sets. And as far as I'm aware, also, they're also going to be bringing ourselves, as usual, the sticker sheet. So, nothing special in my opinion, but I will say, though, is about the fact that the actual artwork, when it comes to the forms of, you know what I'm saying, with the superior Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch remake, is looking a lot more promising, especially noticeable because it's a lot more gorgeous. So, well, at least as far as I'm assuming so anyway, though, so even then though. Now, speaking of the forms of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake on Switch, that was also applies for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, for I've noticed, in regards to the forms of how much gigabytes it will actually cost, assuming of course if you manage to purchase those 2 games digitally, by the way, basically, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch remake is gonna able to have 5.1 gigabytes, and on top of that, in regards to the forms of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, it's going to be 3.1 gigabytes. So, usually relatively speaking though, is that Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remake is almost expected to become bigger as it is. So, either way, alongside with the forms of other games as well, like for instance, Tengoku, Struggle, Stray Side is going to be able to have 6.8 gigabytes, and as far as I'm aware, April's Diary is going to have 1.3 gigabytes, and on top of that, there's also some other games I could probably think about on top of my head, but that's as far as we can able to explain about any of those things from now on. So here we go, on to the next boss fight right here, and this boss is actually kind of fun though. Basically, it's about the fact that you have to able to get this enemy right here and use it as a projectile, so you can potentially try to able to actually aim at its top weak spot. So if you do it a couple of times, obviously this particular boss battle is going to be pretty much a piece of cake. Although you have to pay attention to the forms of the actual movements, by the way, because obviously no matter what though, oh jeez, I totally forgot he does manage to shoot the forms of specific missiles, so that's something we need to watch out for. So anyway though, so there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well, is that, I'm assuming so anyway, is that unfortunately though, is about the fact that one of those physical editions for the upcoming Nintendo Switch game called Raiden Chronicle 100 Heroes for the Nintendo Switch, unfortunately though, that particular game, physical-wise, is about to get delayed at some point until May. Specifically, May 21st, on Tuesday, to be more specifically. It's one of those exactly similar situations as the forms of how it does it on the UK version of the physical version of Sonic Colors Ultimate. So because of that though, except the fact that it does manage to able to describe about different amount of things or something like that. So, even then though, that's as far as I can try and able to explain about that. So, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate though. And one thing it honestly caught me off guard, whenever I do somehow manage to find out, about the fact that I've already mentioned about the forms of how the fact that we're about to be getting a yet another My Little Pony game at some point also in May. So as far as I'm aware, is that there's this other game called the Smurfs Village Party. It's about to be able to get announced for the likes of the Nintendo Switch, and that could be also applies to the forms of multiple platforms as well. So I've already mentioned about the fact that it's going to be releasing on the Switch, and in addition to that, there's also on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and even PC as well. And it also confirms the actual release date for it too, and it's going to be due out at some point around the same month, as in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, including Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. However, about the fact that no matter what though, it's expected to be releasing at some point on the 6th of June. So that's going to be, I would classify for saying it's on Thursday or Wednesday. I'm guessing it could be either be, I would say it's more accurately Thursday, which that reminds me, how come any other Switch games nowadays is going to be releasing on Thursday rather than on Friday, which I was assuming that would be the case. Well, apart from few game exceptions though, which like we've already established that before, that My Little Pony A Several Heights Mystery is going to be releasing on Friday, the 17th of May, which is around 6 days before Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch. And I'm going to still say this right now, I'm still going to be excited to able to experience Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door again, except the fact I can play the game on the go. And not to mention though, that game is going to be a lot more fun, because I don't know about you, I'm basically going to be skipping over My Little Pony Several Heights Mystery, because as far as I'm aware, that game is basically identical to a Maritime Bay Adventure. And to me though, it does kind of remind me of the similar situation as the forms of the 3DS Sonic Boom games. Like for instance, they managed able to get those two games within a 2-year gap. Like for example, with Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal, they managed to came out in 2014 around the same time as in that dreadful Rise of Lyric for the Wii U, and until 2 years later, they obviously bring in Sonic Boom Fire and Ice for the 3DS in 2016, and as far as I'm aware, that was also applies for one of those recent My Little Pony video games for multiple platforms, including Nintendo Switch and PC as well, and every nowadays with the forms of Xbox Series X and as well as Series S, and not to mention though, PlayStation 5 as well. So, presumably speaking though, since in 2022, they obviously did manage to able to bring a Maritime Bay Adventure, since in 2022, but until in 2024, which is around 2 years later, they obviously announced a Several Heights Mystery. So because of that though, yeah, it just feels a little bit too similar, doesn't it? So, even then though, yeah, again, I apologize for my tongue twist in the end, folks, but that's just mainly because I was trying to think of something else, but either way. So as you can tell about the fact that unfortunately though, we somehow got too late in regards to the forms of claiming ourselves the third element, so as a result, it looks like Lorana did somehow manage to claim the element of Discord, I'm pretty sure for this point, because she's the only one that she does manage to activate the bell first before we do. So, which pretty much leads us to the forms of the next level, which as a result, this stage is pretty similar to the forms of how it does it for Volk City, except the fact that as you can tell, the level design has been altered, so because of that though, making things a little bit more challenging than the likes of how it does it since we first got there. So, And also, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that, for I've noticed something about this as well, is that some of these games has recently going to be able to become 20 years old during that specific period. Like, for example, I would say back in 2004, that was around that time, about the fact that we're most able to say this right now, that until at some point in during the forms of sometime in July, basically we can able to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the forms of the video game tie-in from the likes of Athens 2004 Summer Olympics video game, and same applies with the forms of the actual Olympics as well, which obviously Athens does manage to take place in Greece, or Greek to be more specifically, or should I say Greece, because I keep thinking about the forms of multiple languages compilations I did somehow manage to able to check out, in regards to the forms of the multi-language compilations for specific scenes of some films. But either way though, that's all I can really say about that, I guess. So, also, I don't know, suppose if you notice about the fact that, as far as I'm aware, about the fact that at this point in time, unfortunately though, the uploading schedules is once again gonna go too slow, just like the ones how it does it in last year. Well, that's just mainly because at this point in time, it's about the fact that we still have no idea of what can we discuss upon next, aside from the fact that hopefully there might be a possibility about the fact that maybe that indie world might appear during at some point in this month, or perhaps even maybe next month. Although, then again, we shall see what happens in due time, especially noticeable because, as far as I'm usually concerned, about the fact that tomorrow is going to be the 20th of March, and oh boy, we will discuss more about it, and I'm pretty sure that Maxi will mention more about the forms of that particular, the diabolical 20th of March, until tomorrow, because, well, he's got a lot of things to say about that. Well, when it comes to, like, looking back on certain things, apart from that, well, one positive thing about it, well, that again, that, you know what I'm saying. So, of course, just like the ones how it does on the original PlayStation 2 version, is that, presumably speaking now, we're getting chased by the forms of this particular mobile tank. So, because of that though, or specifically with this robot, so if you dare manage to able to get in contact with the forms of not only some more flames from the back, but it's also with the forms of this laser right here. Basically though, you die instantly. So because of that though, still it does remind me of a similar vibes as the forms of The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, with that particular fire has been going on, and same applies with the forms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze in one of those levels as well, which appears to be by the forms of Scorching Flames. I'm pretty sure that level is actually called it. So, remind you about the fact that it's been almost about 1 month ago since we did somehow manage to able to win back onto Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, aside from the fact that we've already did somehow finish that particular playthrough since in Journey forms of some time ago. So, anyway, we should be safe for now. So, until specifically until later on though, about the fact that there was that particular annoying piece, I was gonna able to talk about that until whenever we do manage to able to meet up with that particular annoying piece we need to obtain. So, either way, let's just go ahead and utilize one of those specific enemies that allows us to able to go even further when it comes to the forms that jump height. So, well, potentially speaking, I was about the fact that, well, we pretty much know exactly what to expect at this point. So, and of course, several of those specific doll pieces is actually going to be on a different spots. So, I can pretty sure for the sake of time, oh, we can able to actually just go through here, and, oh, nice. So that way we can able to launch ourselves all the way higher above, and generally speaking, I was about the fact that we can able to exponentially, there's no way I can get those specific, jewels or crystals to be more specifically, but that's okay though, because aside from the fact that I don't think it's possible we can able to go for a true 100% completion, aside from obtaining some more doll pieces as far as I'm usually concerned. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to describe about any of those things at this point in time. And as far as I'm usually can tell from this point, is that I'm pretty sure about the fact that we've almost had probably 2 weeks left now until Freedom Planet 2 is going to be releasing on multiple platforms, yes, including Nintendo Switch as well. So generally speaking though, I'm still very excited to able to actually finally get a chance to experience Freedom Planet 2 on the Nintendo Switch, so still, I'm very excited when it comes to able to experiencing that. Although, unfortunately though, I still haven't exactly finished up the first game just yet though. Well, that's mainly because I was trying to able to practice the forms of how the gameplay mechanics works. Although, for what I can tell, it plays pretty similar to the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog, except it's been made by an indie developer. So, I fully appreciate about that. So, anyway, so once again we're getting chased, and at least this piece is not that big of a deal, but the next one is gonna be a pain. Although luckily though, assuming no matter what though, if we dare manage to able to meet up with this dreadful piece we need to obtain, and you can definitely see why. So in some cases though, let's just go ahead and grab some more jewels and hop onto specific springs, including tornadoes as well. And this is the piece I was talking about. It was literally down there. So if I missed a couple of times and oh nice, I somehow got this without any to deal with a lot of frustrating moments, unlike Ray the Flying Squirrel that he sometimes gets a bit too frustrated. So oh no, I die instantly. Yep, I died. Well, that's okay though, because luckily I don't have to worry about just re-grabbing that particular ridiculous piece again. So, oh wait, what a relief, huh? Especially noticeable because no matter what though, imagine if about the fact that if it does not address that issue though, that makes the entire experience when it comes to getting that specific piece a lot more frustrating. Unlike the original PlayStation 2 version, that it just makes things a lot more difficult as far as I'm aware. Now, for I've noticed something about the forms of Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil nowadays, is that I've noticed about the fact that the original PlayStation 2 version, whenever I looked upon eBay or anything else like that, with a complete inbox with manual and everything, as it turns out, the game itself is actually ridiculously cheap to get, although it might be pricey at some form or another, but it's just about the fact that with the used copy of Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, that I've noticed about the fact that the price tag is actually going to be a lot more cheaper these days, whilst unlike Door to Phantasy on the PlayStation 1, and same applies with the forms of Klonoa Beach Volleyball game also on the PlayStation 1, that for whatever reason the price tag is ridiculously high, which that could be also applied to the forms of the cartridge only version of Klonoa Empire of Dreams, specifically the European version, and I'm pretty sure same applies with the forms of Klonoa 2 Dream Champ Tournament for the Game Boy Advance as well. I can assure you because of how the fact that, well, it's hard for me to say about this at this rate. I mean, obviously, as you can tell, I'm still basically concentrating, you know, which is especially noticeable because no matter what though, I'm more curious about the forms of how much lives we're going to be able to expect to hold up for. Well, specifically speaking though, is about the fact that, like I said before, eventually whatever we get to towards the end of the forms of Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, which that might possibly is going to be happening, probably at some point in sometime in April at some form or another, which as a result though, we might able to actually drain lives very fast, so anyway, so let's just go ahead and use those springs so we can able to jump over for this particular mobile tank robot right here, so we can able to actually just try to avoid his particular attacks and all that stuff. And oh jeez, okay, I was not expecting that, but that's okay though, because we can just simply just be safe on this spot. And something tells me he's pretty much going to be in flames, and as a result he's going to be in self-destruct. So although I could imagine about the fact that if I was trying to do this stage on hard mode, my god, I have to go all the way back to that particular beginning portion of that segment again, which that won't be that fun. And as far as I'm aware, yeah, this stage is pretty much done. Even though despite the fact that I do die at one point, but that's okay though, because unlike the original PlayStation 2 version, that, my god, I felt so sorry for Ray the Flying Squirrel, whatever he did manage to experience with that particular dreadful piece, that he keeps on getting a lot of trial and error to able to get that specific godforsaken piece. Although, thankfully though, in a remastered version, that as I mentioned this before, thankfully that particular quality of life improvements has been, well, addressed and solved, which, yeah, that could be also applied for the forms of obtaining certain green stars from the likes of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Like, if you accidentally die at one point after obtaining one of those specific green stars, obviously you'll keep the green star for good. And that could be also applies for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker as well, that if you grab one of those specific super gems, basically though you can able to keep your super gems forever, if you keep dying a lot. So yeah, that seems pretty cool though, especially noticeable that thankfully we don't need to worry about the forms of a lot of trial and error moments anymore, so that's always a good thing. So anyways though, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, I guess, is that I've noticed about the fact that after the Ninja Tour rerun, I believe we're about to be going back onto Yoshi Tour at some point in journey forms of probably by the beginning of April. So it makes sense because obviously spring is now upon us. So, and after Yoshi Tour rerun, I believe we're about to be going back into the Spring Tour rerun for able to going back into Athens Dash, despite the fact that it seems a little bit missed opportunity on my part, because obviously we've already able to experience Athens Dash thanks to the forms of the Boosticles Pass already for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, as you probably already expect. So anyway, so we did somehow complete this entire stage, as I said before, and now let's go back onto this particular island right here, so we can definitely know what our next objective we're going to be hit on to next. And something tells me is about the fact that we must go into somewhere snowy, so to able to actually find ourselves the next element, which appears to be by the forms of indecision, at least as far as I'm usually concerned with this point. So, but yeah, aside from all that stuff though, folks, that's as far as I can try and able to discuss upon the forms of what has been happening recently. So, yeah, still I'm very excited able to, you know, play Princess Peach Showtime until 3 days time now, and as far as I'm aware, there maybe is a possibility about the fact that it could possibly be the one last Nintendo first party published game for the Nintendo Switch will be releasing on Friday or something like that. Well, it's a bit difficult to tell at this point, because as far as I'm aware, after we did somehow receive the actual release dates for both Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake, in addition with Luigi's Mansion 2 HD has already been addressed with all these release dates, we still have no idea what's going to be up next for the sake of the forms of specific Nintendo Switch games will be expected to get announced just before when they moved on to the next Nintendo system. Well, as far as I'm aware, we haven't exactly got anything new for Zelda for this year so far, apart from the fact that, for what I've heard, they're about to be making a live-action movie for its development. So because of that though, in terms of games-wise, aside from the fact that we've already got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom ever since almost about 10 months ago at this point, and as far as I'm aware, we have no idea when it comes to like certain remasters or remakes for certain Zelda games might get announced in journey forms of the final stretch of the Nintendo Switch lifespan. Well, then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens during at some point in probably in April or in sometime in June. Well, it's a bit difficult to tell at this point, so because of that though, yeah, I apologize for the fact that my commentary is not the, it's not the strongest in the world, but regardless of such though, at least I did somehow explain quite a few things, you know, so that's as far as I was expecting, so, but anywho though, so, yeah, next up we're about to be going to, let's just say we're about to go onto the Ark, which appears to be that specific ship that we do need to activate. So, yeah, obviously, no matter what though, something feels a bit fishy is going on with this guy, which I can assure to you about the fact that it might able to bring us something like a plot twist or something like that, which as a result, yeah, if you already know about this ever since on the PlayStation 2 version, you know exactly what I'm talking about until eventually later on. So, anyway though, so obviously the game automatically saves as to be expected, and well, we can now move on to the next level. So suffice to say is that we got the ending stuff at this point right here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series while we're still experiencing Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil. Is that we're about to be going on to the next level, which appears to be Ashura's Ark. So I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later fellas.